Welcome to the Low Production, High Value Show with your host, Andrew Jenkins. On the show, we'll be exploring the world of entrepreneurship, social media, and the growing digital landscape. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just starting out, you know that the world of business is constantly evolving and changing. And in today's digital age, it is more important than ever to understand how social media and technology are affecting the way we do business. That's why on this show, we'll be talking to entrepreneurs and experts who have a wealth of knowledge and experience to share with you. From the latest trends and technologies to the struggles and triumphs of running a business, we'll be covering it all. So if you're looking to level up your entrepreneurial game and become more digitally savvy, then let's get started with the Low Production, High Value Show.
So welcome to the latest episode of the Low Production, High Value Show. Our guest today is Gavin McGarry. Welcome, Gavin. Looking forward to our conversation today, and I hope things are well where you are.
Yeah, thanks so much. I am currently, I'm in Mammoth Lakes, California. I live in Los Angeles, but I'm up in Mammoth right now, just getting away from the COVID and mountain biking every day.
For you.
Yeah.
Well, where I like to kick things off is, a little bit of people's history, where they came from. So, I mean, you and I have known each other in the social media space, but I know you've got a media background that I'd like to explore for a few moments. So, where and how did you come up?
Well, from an entrepreneurial standpoint, I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. It started in grade 5 when I was drawing birds, like drawing pictures of birds and selling them for 5 cents to my friends. So that's where it started. Didn't work very well. I don't think I've ever been very good at business, but at 16, I started a skateboard shop, and I ordered my decks in Venice Beach, California, where I live, and I now live there. And that was one of my goals, is to live where I got my Powell and Peralta Vision sticks from, which is great.
And then shop still there?
No, I don't. I didn't. My shop.
No, not yours, but the supplier. Are they?
Yeah, no, they got really big, right? So I used to
Okay.
order them when they were just a small shop, but it came from Venice Beach, and now I live near Dogtown, and it was sort of cool. So a big skateboarder. My career really sort of took off when I was at university. I did a weekly show. At the time, it was 25 years ago, we used VHS and SVHS, and we made a weekly comedy show. And I sent that tape to Moses Neimer, who runs City TV. He liked me enough to hire me and put me on air at Breakfast Television. But at the same time, I was very interested in business. So I would also produce the shows in the background. So I was on air and doing producing, and that was fun. And I left there and went to the CBC, and I was one of the youngest senior producers, and I ran one of the big shows for CBC television. And that's my whole media sort of background. I was really into the media, creating content, I was a director. I directed commercials. I did all sorts of stuff, anything I could do in entertainment. I loved it. And then once I left there, I went over to the UK for 3 or 4 years, and I worked for one of the biggest production companies in the world called Endemol, which did Big Brother and Deal or No Deal. And I was head of business, business development there. And that's where I really sort of moved on to the side. And this is back in like 2007. This is just before everything was starting to take off. And I came back to the US. I got a job at Juiced, which was owned by the Skype guys. So we burnt through 100 million in 2 years. It was great. We were the precursor to Hulu, really.
Yeah.
So Hulu and Juiced were head to head. Juiced actually went bankrupt. Hulu took off. It was all about content. Learned a lot there in New York City. But that got me, when Juiced shut down and I left Juiced, I started Jumpwire Media, which I've been at for the last 11 years. And we started off basically consulting to media companies. But at the same time, I could see there was a really huge jump going in social media. So we focused a lot on social media. And I remember going to dinner parties and people asking me what Facebook was. I mean, that's how long ago it was. So now we do, we've done some of the biggest brands in the world. We offer strategy. We do content. We build all sorts of things. We're usually on the leading edge of what the trends are. So right now I'm looking at things like Minecraft and Roblox and how that is influencing the behaviors of the next generation. But we were some of the first people into Snapchat. We had a deal with TikTok, and those are all sort of old school for us now. And Facebook is something where we're specialists in, but mostly people come to me to ask around strategy around their business. So that's
But
the business side of what I do.
what you saw in the early days of social to what you're seeing now, as you said, trying to be leading edge, but um, you know, the entrenched ones like Facebook and so on, and when the up and comers like TikTok. I mean, TikTok is all, I wouldn't say is, you know, um, uh, it's not fresh anymor because it's 2 years old, which is a lifetime in
Which
social
is
media. But
crazy, right?
yeah, yeah, but it's still, they say 20 years to become an overnight sensation. It's 2 years in social.
Yeah.
But I'm just, if you could, from your perspective, comparing and contrasting social from the early days to now.
Nothing's really changed other than a race to the bottom. I mean, both of you and I both own agencies, and now anyone can do social media. The great thing about what happened with social media is that, anyone could do it, right? Like anyone can buy Facebook ads. But I think the people that aren't in our industry don't seem to understand how it's broken up now. It's broken up very specifically. There's the ad side. So Facebook is actually two platforms, as you know, right? It's like there's Facebook, the ad side, and then there's Facebook, the content side. Then and never the two will really meet. You can't you can't use the words like buy or sell or anything on the content side. If you do, the algorithm will not let you see anything. Facebook, I have 2 or 3 friends who work there. They had one guy doing AI 5 years ago, Jan LeCun. Now they have 3 huge departments of artificial intelligence. Facebook is not run by humans anymore. It's run by computers. And so when that happened, you needed a certain type of person. When I first started out doing social media, it was very exclusive. Not a lot of people knew about it, and people paid us a lot of money. I'm telling you, like a ton of money to give them strategy because no one knew anything. After about 3 or 4 or 5 years at Jumpwire, people started to realize, CEOs started to realize, not as big a deal as I thought. Oh, there's this ad platform, Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or whatever. I can just buy ads on that. I don't actually need a Facebook page. Okay, I'm just going to do that because that's easier. And then the whole arbitrage stuff started to happen,
Yeah.
and Facebook took over for television and radio. And there was the whole media wars around it. So now I've seen social media grow up, and there's a love-hate relationship people have with social media, much like they did with television. And being a media expert as someone who's been through all those different things, I mean, we're seeing the consolidation right now. I mean, everybody knows that social media is going to be regulated. It's coming. It's gonna be regulated here in America. And everyone's like, oh no, that's crazy, but it's going to happen, right? Just like the trains were. Most people don't realize that in America there were 1,000 train companies, right? They all came together to become 2. So that's what Zuckerberg's doing. That's it's going to happen with Twitter. TikTok got in under the wire. We've actually been looking here at Jumpwire at starting our own social media platform because those who are going to have a social media platform now are going to be grandfathered, right? Because once the FCC regulations come in, it's going to be just like what happened in radio, just like what happened in television, less so in television, but more in radio, where there were thousands of people with ham radios. And then all of a sudden they said, nope, now you've got to buy a license for it. Social media will be licensed and we'll be on to the next thing. But as you say, coming back to the first part of what we discussed, is that 2 years is a long time in social media. I mean, we now have, I think there's 8 new social media platforms that have jumped up recently. Netflix has started considering doing one. I heard rumors because people want the attention. So we've spent a lot of time at Jumpwire working on this idea of the time wallet, how much time you have. And Netflix does not think that other platforms like Amazon are competitors. Their competitor is TikTok, because TikTok, I just spent last night, I could have been watching Netflix. Netflix is such a bad experience. I can't find what I want. When I do find something, I'm not sure if I like it. There's no rating system. TikTok, I spent an hour, it blew by in a second, and I was laughing the whole time. The night before I watched Netflix, got what I thought was going to be a great movie. Bored out of my mind, fast forward through the whole thing, and I'm like, okay, this is a waste of my time. And now I don't go to Netflix first. I go to TikTok, I go to my Facebook, because that's where I'm getting all my entertainment now.
I warn people who are just new to TikTok. I said, be careful. You're going to blow a half an hour to 45 minutes every time you open it before you realize it, because it's as you said, it's just, there's something about their algorithm, the way they're tailoring it. It's just funny, provocative, engaging, and it's just your thumb.
And if Microsoft buys it, it will be toast in under a year. Just like everything else they've bought. Skype, they screwed that up. I mean, that's why I'm
Okay.
hoping it's not Microsoft. I'm hoping it's Oracle, but that's just my own personal thing. I think that these big companies can't deal with it.
No hope for Twitter?
Twitter, I mean, I like what they've done recently where they now, you can, I don't know if you're on the beta where you're testing the opportunity to only have a conversation with people that you allow to be. So you can have the everybody tab now, or you can have just a group of people that just launched yesterday. I got mine, but maybe you've been testing it
I
longer.
think, well, they do US first. So
Oh,
that might be
yeah, I
why.
mean, listen,
Yeah.
we've got a huge, these guys are platforms that are acting like publishers, and that
Right.
is where the free speech stuff here in America is going to get them.
Mhm.
They're not allowed to do that. And
Right.
this deplatforming thing is a serious issue. We're not happy about it, but quite frankly, unless you understand the US Constitution, these are private companies. They can do whatever they want. And that's why we need to get them regulated,
Mhm.
because you can't have that much influence, and then be able to say, well, I'm going to deplatform this person. I think, out of all of them, Facebook is doing the best job because they have been courting the Republicans a little bit, and they've been leaving people up who Twitter has been taking down. Twitter is clearly left leaning and is very biased about who they're taking down. Google the same way, but that's going to come back to bite them. I think
Yeah.
that we once they get under the FCC regulations, but it'll also come back to us as people, right? That we'll have to make sure that we can't put up certain things. I mean, that's what the AI is going to click in. I think that's what they're waiting for, is that the AI, as you're starting to see stuff, well, we all know from 2 or 3 years ago, it's being pulled down when they were testing it. I mean, the content ID, putting up things where it could be defamatory to someone. That's going to be a difficult problem to solve.
But do you think Twitter is a viable candidate to buy TikTok, or that they wouldn't screw it up like a Microsoft? I'm like you. I'm having worked for Microsoft solution providers, having been up close with Microsoft. You know, you know, LinkedIn hasn't. But I don't know whether it's just more the corporate enterprise feel of LinkedIn was more conducive to Microsoft. But the thought of B2C, fun, vibrant TikTok inside the where innovation goes to die.
No, I think that Microsoft is taking it on. There's a lot of politics going on here. I think that they're taking it on to kill it. They're also taking it on to unwind it. So Microsoft is seen as basically a government. It's got government contracts, much like Amazon does. I think that they'll take it into D&D, and they'll pull that whole thing apart and find out what they were doing, what they knew, what they figured out. I don't think it has anything. They don't care about the audience.
Right.
Microsoft has never really cared about their customers because they've always had a somewhat monopoly. That's starting to change now. So, I mean, you know me, like I find all of this exciting. I don't really care. I'm like, oh, that's an interesting way to do it. But, the battle has moved away from the newspapers and the TV and the radio. I just did a radio show at KABC in California, here in Los Angeles. I was on Monday nights. No one's listening. Like, they don't even have any ratings. Like, no. And we did a whole bunch of testing because we were testing radio for some of our other clients. Waste of time. Like, no one's listening. But however, this whole Spotify.
But do they admit that no one's listening? As in
No. They will never admit that they're. Why would you?
No. But what I mean is, like, they're not giving you ratings as one of their stable of hosts.
No, they don't have enough. They don't have enough. They don't get high enough ratings to be able to register, and the ratings that they do are made up.
Even to move the meter. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I did a whole deep dive with PhDs into the rating system that Nielsen and Arbitron and all those sort of people use here in America. I don't know if most people know, but there's still people out there. I think it was like 4 years ago, 250 markets that were still diary write-in. I mean, come on. So yeah, listen, the media business is moving. And I think that what's interesting about what's happening in social media is that we have such speed I'm waiting for the next thing. I'm tracking a few things right now that are interesting, that we'll see how they come out, like Byte, the parody, which is the Twitter clone for the right, for Republican, for very right-leaning people to combat Twitter's left-leaning. Incredible the speed at which this thing is jumping. Jordan Peterson's ThinkSpot, right, where they don't take anything down unless it's by a legal document. So they've used the courts. If it's something that's not allowed on there because it's gone through a court process, someone sued, then otherwise they won't remove it. So this whole free speech thing is very interesting. And then, the biases between each side and what people believe and what they think is right, and what is hate speech and all the rest of that sort of stuff. Very interesting.
Yeah. I've spent a few minutes on or not a few minutes. I've jumped in periodically on Parlay, and it's interesting.
Well, the thing is for right now is that I'm, politically I'm very moderate, right? I'm not left, I'm not right. But it doesn't matter what I do. As soon as I agree with something that Trump may have said, or something that a Republican, I'm immediately a Republican. I'm like, I don't identify, I'm Canadian. I'm like, it doesn't get any more. But if I go for my Republican friends, if I agree with something that maybe, the Democrats had said or something like that, I'm immediately a Democrat and I can't possibly talk to them. So I've really made sure that I have a balance, that I'm seeing it from all sides. So I get up every morning, I look at the BBC, I definitely look at the CBC in Canada. I watch Fox News, I watch the Fox thing, and everyone's like, oh, that's it. I'm like, but this doesn't seem to make any sense. It's clear that there's 7 newspapers that are heavily biased on the left, and there's only one on. Aren't you concerned about that? So I started looking at Breitbart. I started looking at all these places where I would never normally go, and my God, the balance. And that's what I think the great thing about social media is, and what politics is figuring out right now, is that they can't control the message anymore. Yeah. And things are getting out so quickly that it's turning elections very quickly. Like that if you don't do it correctly, they make up stuff like the Russians infiltrated Facebook, which all of us who work in social media literally laughed out loud when that happened, right? And I'm like, really? You honestly think so? But those are the things, the disinformation that's working out there, and it's interesting. I mean, even during COVID, they're so confused here in America about what is real. Like what does it, I have no idea. So you have to now have so many different sources. And I think there's going to be a little bit of a place in there for someone who pulls all the data. And that's what maybe the news publishers will become, the newspapers will become, looking at all the different social platforms and pulling in the things that they think are important that people should. So there'll be a certain amount of human curation up there.
And now, a word from our sponsor. Social media has become an imperative for almost every business. Discover how to successfully implement an effective social media strategy that is supported and integrated throughout every part of your organization with this essential book from our host, Andrew Jenkins, Social Media Marketing for Business, Scaling an Integrated Social Media Strategy Across Your Organization, is now available from Amazon or KoganPage.com.
Well, they're only doing it like extremely small scale, but it's the podcast Useful Idiots from Rolling Stone.
Yes.
With Matt Taibbi, and I'm forgetting his co-host's name. But they actually open the podcast with something that the Republicans did wrong or right or both, something that they hold both sides to account. And again, I'm an outsider, I'm Canadian, and I'm not trying to turn this political, but it just strikes me to your point about sifting through the noise. And that it just reminds me that there's 2 sides to every story, and you want to make sure you hear both sides.
And it's fascinating, right? When you think I have a certain bent in my mind, and I think something, and then I go and maybe I'll think something from a left wing side, and I'll go and listen to my Republican platforms, and I'm like, my God, I never thought of that. Like, for example, Obama, right? And Trump. Well, a lot of people talk about how bad Trump is, and he just gets hammered all the time. Obama did the exact same stuff, and they show on the Republicans Obama did the exact same thing, and you're like, oh, I didn't know that, right? Because I never would have heard about it in the press. So it's very interesting where you start listening to left and right, and the amount of access we can have very quickly, right? Like we can go on YouTube and we can immediately. So it's really sort of turning the spotlight back on the consumer, that if you're unwilling to listen to, if you are unwilling to listen to different sides, then it's on you, right? If
Right.
you making decisions based on that. But I know many people who will not, like Republicans who will not listen to NBC and MSNBC or CNN or read the New York Times. And I know lots of Democrats who will never, ever listen to anything that Fox News has to say. But I've been watching both. And quite frankly, you know, the New York Times is heavily biased. They've made some massive mistakes. Fox News, massive mistakes, but yet they do get it right sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, everyone says, well, the New York Times is better for that. So you're in this thing of like, no, you're thinking about this like an old person, that I can go to one place and that I believe everything they say. Those days are gone, right? You can't believe anything anyone says. And unless you get three different sources from three different perspectives, you can't trust anything.
Yeah, well, and to me, as long as there are people involved, there will be margin for error.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that's what's interesting around the AI, right? Is that this AI now is what you use it, we use it to make blogs, right? Like boom, you know, I can type a sentence in this blog. This AI blogging software writes a whole paragraph for me, right? So, and I go and correct it and I send it out, and it's a great blog. It's 400 words done off of one sentence that I put, and they pull it from the internet or from whatever. Well, most people don't realize that they're actually reading a lot of stuff that's being generated by machines. So those machines are going to have biases that the people had. So it's really about bias now. So it means that you must go and find, and that's what social media allows us to do. It allows you to get lots of different perspectives and quickly.
Well, with that bias, though, so the recent and still ongoing Facebook boycott. I mean, is that from your perspective just posturing?
That was such a laugh. I could not stop laughing because they said, well, just till the end of the year. I'm like, if you're going to boycott Facebook, like never go back. Like that's what a boycott, well, technically not what a boycott is, but
Right.
you know, like you're going to slam Facebook. I think Facebook is probably the most, I really applaud Zuckerberg for holding fast when people are going after him with cancel culture. I cannot believe how quickly Twitter caved. And I think that many of us who work in social media are like, no, you are a platform. You don't take down anybody. You leave them up. We will decide as
Right.
the people. We have all the tools that Facebook has given us to say, I don't agree with this, remove this, right? This is what the press never talks about, because most people don't understand is that my friends who work at Google and Facebook, year on year for the last 5 years, they've taken something like 30% of the ad dollars from newspapers and television, right? So if that's happening every day, what are you going to do on news on television? You are going to bash Facebook as much as possible so that people don't buy on there because they're not sure. I'm not really sure if it's real or not. They've made up so much stuff about Facebook that I have to, you know, at dinner parties, I have to settle my friends down and say, you guys don't seem to understand how sophisticated these algorithms are. If you think that you don't have the power on social media, you're drunk. And the more things that you click and like, the more you're going to see of that, right? So make sure you have a balanced group of people that are on your Twitter or your Facebook.
Well, for the same reason you might comment on a negative post to argue against it, you're engaging with it, which the AI sees as engagement, which is a positive. So you're going to see some more of that. And this is where it's the two sides.
And we've moved, and the AI has moved away from phrases, from words to phrases, right? So now the AI is about, I think it's about an 8 or 9 year old, so they can understand. Like you go and talk to any 8 or 9 year old, they'll take all your money in 2 seconds, right? Like they know exactly what to do. So these AI, I mean, it's very, very sophisticated, and they're now the machine learning on the AI that feeds the AI is able to ingest so much.
Well, I was just having a conversation with a client recently. We're doing some social media monitoring for them, and it was pertaining to a publicly traded company, which is the client. And there was a tweet that said "best kept secret." And now I won't fault the AI of Facebook or Twitter, but I will fault the listing tool because it's still maturing. Best kept secret. The word "secret" was seen as negative, so the sentiment rating for it was negative. And then also, I had in our monitoring, we found mentions of the company on Facebook and Twitter. So it was the same article referring to them, identical article, different channel. One channel was positive, one channel was negative. So, and I took a screenshot because the in our
Which was
report,
positive, which was negative?
I can't remember whether it was Facebook was positive and Twitter was negative.
Probably,
But I
probably.
took a screenshot and I sent it to them and said, and of course they just went, well, AI is still learning. I was like, yeah, but the fact it's identical article, word for word, and it's your tool filtering it, but it's two different platforms that you're pulling it from. So it's just,
But yeah, I mean, we're in a place where it's it is what it is, and social media, we know, listen, that's why we've moved to communities, right? So everything we do is around community, because we move people, we use social media as the front end to bring people in, but then we move them into a community on Slack or whatever platform, Discord, whatever, so that we can control how we talk to them. Email's a mess, right? We can't get to people because of the all the regulations now.
Right.
Even if people like our stuff, they white label us, that it's not gonna help. So now, to own the customer, to own your customer, have a communication with your customer, we've moved to community and SMS, right? We have to go to texting, and we don't text people very often, but when we do, they appreciate it. But that's starting to become a problem as well too. So, I think that it's, how do you reach your customer? And more importantly, how can the customer reach you? And I think as we move into community, that's the way forward, but who knows?
Well, but what I'm wondering or fearful of, you're talking about texting. Now you've got these marketing services coming and saying, we'll do your email, we'll do your SMS, we'll do and suddenly it's like, okay, so basically you're blast on all channels. I get inundated with vendors on LinkedIn who want to automate my prospecting on LinkedIn, which is, you want to spam my network and beyond my network. And so you want to hit 100 people so I get 2 people to respond. Like, no.
Yeah. No, I mean, I have a very set system on LinkedIn. I've only ever, and I'm very lucky because when I worked at Juiced, LinkedIn was in the office beside us in New York City. So they were just starting. I've had a LinkedIn account for a very long time. And I made a decision right at the beginning. I don't know how I knew this. And I said, on my LinkedIn, I'm only going to accept people I've shook hands with or I've met in person or on Zoom. And, I have maybe 5,000 people on my LinkedIn. I could have like thousands because people try to get me all the time. But I kept that very end. Wow, do I have a very powerful LinkedIn now? Because the people, I know who they are. I know what they're doing. I know, I've been in business for 25 years. I know a lot of them for many, many years. And if I need to reach out to them, they know who I am. And I'm shocked that LinkedIn is allowing these people to continually spam us. Like I get 2 or 3 a day, and I am helping LinkedIn by saying X, and then I don't know this person, because that blocks them after about 3 or 4 of those. What a lot of people do is they just leave it. And then that becomes even a bigger problem, because then there's no reaction. So they're allowed to keep on doing what they're doing. So I think that there needs to be a little bit of education around social media about that, how your interactions, even if you don't interact, you interact. Dwell time is a huge deal on Facebook. We're trying to get the data on dwell time, but that's how the AI determines. You don't have to do anything on Facebook. They just look at what you spend the most time on.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm unique because I've got it open all day because of work. So my dwell time would be off the charts.
Well, I mean, they also know it's about the scroll system,
Yeah.
but it's very sophisticated. I mean,
yeah. Well, not to name drop, but I was in conversation with Tyler Brule from Monocle Magazine.
Yeah.
And he talks
Love
about,
Monocle.
well, I love it too. I love their Monocle radio and so on. But what's just so unique about them is I think they have one social account, which is Instagram. Reluctantly, but he said, like, I'm not going to give all of our ad dollars to Facebook or to Google. And he is this, or I should say, Monocle is a brand that is navigating they're the anti-social media company, and they are traditional ads in the magazine, ads on their website, and they don't give anything to the likes of Facebook or Google, with great pride.
They are idiots. I love Tyler. I think he's great, and I think what he's built is fantastic. But that sort of stance is arrogance. and it's clearly not understanding the digital space, and that you need to be everywhere. And I just say back to my clients, as I would say to Tyler if I met him, I'm like, dude, it's free. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be a bit obtuse, but Twitter is free. Facebook is free. You don't have to spend any ads there. The platforms are free. You can pay someone for the amount of money you were going to pay on ads. You can have someone creating content. I mean, you look at Monocle magazine, it's beautifully shot. Take all that entire magazine digitally and put it online. After a year of doing nothing, you'd probably have 2,000 or 3,000 people. Each one of those people would wait. I mean, we all hit the bell all the time on YouTube, on Twitter. I follow 300. I have 5,000 people that follow me. I have 300 people that I follow on Twitter, and they're all belled, right? I just want to see stuff from them, and maybe out of those, I refine them a bit and put them onto a list. But I think that most people don't understand how these platforms work. And I think that once you understand how they work and you get the most out of them, like Twitter lists, for example, most people don't know that Twitter lists exist. I mean, you put together a Twitter list, it's like having your own news feed of just stuff you want to see.
Well, and I've shown people use a list. You can follow your competitors. You can follow whoever secretly, because you can make it a private list and they'll never know that they're being followed. For whatever reason, and they're like, oh, and I said, like, the greatest analogy I ever heard, I may have shared this with you before, was I was at a conference 10 plus years ago in Amsterdam, and this guy said, Twitter is like a creek that runs through your garden. Every day you just go out and you take out just enough water to water your garden, and you do it again tomorrow, because the water is going to keep coming, and you can keep going back to it, but you don't. The whole idea of fear of missing out, forget about that. I can go back to the very first tweet in 2006 if I want, because Twitter is that open. So anyway, I'll get off my pulpit.
No, I listen, we know what they are. Facebook is for friends and family. You keep it friends. Twitter is for news and information. All the journalists are on it. We trained the Toronto Star. They were all on Twitter. We moved them to Facebook and they couldn't believe the engagement difference. I'm like, yeah, okay. But most journalists and PR are on Twitter, right? If you want to get that, you have to find it. Instagram is for people who are, it's a little bit personal, but it's also like showing their best life, right? Like YouTube is for, so it changes over time, but we all have what the platforms do. And how they work.
How would you describe TikTok then?
TikTok was, until about a couple months ago, was my global news information source, because India was on it and China was on it. When I was throwing through TikTok, I would get some from the US, I'd get some from Canada, but then I would also get, I really knew what it was like to be a young person in India, right? Like all the driving the bikes and making all the funny stuff. And it wasn't like, hey, this is how my backyard is. It was like they were just doing stuff that we were doing. They were jumping on the trends. In China, it was amazing to see how Chinese people lived, right? And no one wants that. No one wants a global perspective, because then it starts to make us all seem like one person, right? And I think that the politics isn't good. We can't use it to have an enemy. Like right now, we're in this giant Cold War with China. Are we really? Is it right? But that's what's happening, right? We're at this war with China, not Russia. Russia's a waste of time, but China is like serious, is doing some serious stuff to us. And but when you see everyday people like you and me on TikTok, you don't dislike China politically. You like the people who are there every day just trying to live their lives and get ahead.
They're just another member of your community. Have you seen that not really an app, but it's a website where you can look out the window of someone else and somewhere else in the world?
No, I haven't. What's it called?
I'll have to send it to you. But you log on and you just hit basically like scrolling web pages. You scroll through windows.
Is it like chat roulette? Am I going to get someone naked on there?
No. It's well, I've only been on a little while, but yes, it's random, but it's meant that your webcam or a webcam is pointed out the window. So you're seeing someone's garden in Germany. You're seeing a streetscape in.
Oh, cool. Well, it's very much like Earth TV or Earth Cam. I mean, Earth Cam, I worked with them about 5 or 6 years ago, and they went around the world and bought up the rights to all the public cameras around the world. So you can go, I actually followed a friend of mine through Europe, and I went and said to him, I'm like, just go and wave at this camera. It's right here. And I gave him the location. He would wave it and I could see him. Right. So I could see, because he was going from, I was on a train going from place to place. And I'm like, oh, where are you now? Because I could see where he was going.
Right.
And I knew his itinerary. And I'm like, oh, you're in Berlin. Okay, well, go here under the tower. There's a camera pointing down. Wave at that camera. So I think that, this idea of that bringing the global community, but the whole idea that it's in someone's house and they're pointing it out the window, or they've given you access. That's interesting. How are they doing that? Like, because Nest is all about privacy, and
I'll send you the site. You can look for yourself.
I have to look at the code and figure that out.
Well, listen, I know our time has come to an end. I really want to thank you for sharing the insights that you've done, and I'm sure if time permits, we'll have a part 2 someday. But thanks again for sharing all the insights from the 25 years of experience that you've had. So thank you very much.
No problem. I don't really feel like I shared anything. I thought we were just talking.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Low Production High Value Show. Be sure to give us a rating and subscribe to make sure you never miss an episode. Don't forget to check out Volterra at volterradigital.com to learn more about how they can support your social media marketing.